The Elgato Facecam is being billed as the king of the webcams, and with it costing almost £200, we hope so. So let's check it out. The resolution of the Facecam is 1080p and it can do 60 frames per second of uncompressed video. It uses the Elgato f2.4 prime lens with the Sony CMOS sensor, so it should produce a good image, especially in low light. It's all made out of plastic except for the rubber pads which are on the inside of the clamp, so you can mount it onto your screen and it shouldn't move around too much and causing scratches. There's a USB-C port on the back, and the cable you receive is USB-C to USB-A, so you can connect it to your PC or Mac. The provided USB cable does stick out of the back quite a way, so if you're mounting this next to a wall, then you're going to need a little distance, else you risk damaging the cable. The mount can be unscrewed if you want to put it onto a tripod of your own, if that's more suitable for you. The privacy cover needs the flat pieces to be at the top and the bottom to pop it over the lens and clip it in place. You will also need your own microphone when using the Facecam, as it doesn't come with one built in. So let's take a look at the image quality straight out of the box with the default settings before installing the Camera Hub software. Beginning in a dark room, and it does an amazing job of bringing light to the image. We notice that the light is down the centre of the image, so if you move to either side of the frame, we lose some of the light on ourselves. Looking at the footage, it looks as though we are getting the full 60 frames per second too, which is really impressive. There is noticeable grain around the outside of us, which is more noticeable down the right hand side of the image. Moving on to using natural light coming in through the window, and we lose a lot of the grain that was around the outside of us. The movement still looks really good, and the image quality is good as well. The colour representation is also good, but it may be a touch oversaturated on the reds. Covering up the lens and moving our hand away, and it does a great job of adjusting the lighting very quickly, and it keeps us in focus. Using a ring light on ourselves, and whilst the image looks good, we begin to experience these weird little micro stutters on occasion. Not entirely sure if this is our laptop we're performing the tests on, or if it's the Facecam, but we seem to only experience this when we had our ring light on. We double checked and it was connected to a USB 3.0 port as well. Focusing on a small object, and we begin to lose the focus at around 8 inches away. We are using a ring light in this test, and the Facecam seems to struggle to adjust the exposure with the Lego character's face looking washed out. Focusing on text, and it does a good job when there's some distance between the lens and the paper. If we get too close, then expect the text to look fuzzy. We've now installed the Camera Hub software from Elgato, and here's the features and what everything looks like. This is what the Camera Hub will look like. Quickly going through the options that we have. We have the zoom option. We are currently set at 83.2 degrees, which is the widest field of view that the Facecam can do. We can knock this down all the way to 24.4, which is not very flattering for me there. So we've got all the increments in between. If we've got, for example, 57.4, the next jump down is 54.4. It won't let us manually put 56.4. It will jump back to 57. So you are stuck with all these little increments that are already set in the software. Under picture, we can change the contrast, the saturation, the sharpness. So you can manually play around with these to try and improve your overall image. If you do make a mistake and you want to go back, click on this little restore icon there. That will go back to the defaults that are saved in the software. Under exposure, we are on automatic. We can change the metering now from center weighted to average. The best way I can explain this is if you kind of look around this area, when we go to average, it slightly brightens the image up around us. So rather than the exposure being smack down the middle of the image, it kind of spreads it across the picture. So we'll go back from average to center weighted. You should be able to see a little change there. Very subtle. We can play with compensation as well to bring more light to the image, or completely get rid of the light if that's what you want. Under automatic, we can disable that. That would allow us to play around with the shutter speed and the ISO settings. So you can manually do this, and you'll probably be able to get yourself a better image than what it automatically sets for you. But it will need some patience and a little bit of messing about. Under white balance, once again, set to automatic, you can disable this, and you can change the temperature of the light, so we can go to a very cool light. We can go all the way up to 12,500 for a very warm light. Once again, we'll go back to automatic. Noise reduction, once again, if you look where the blue light is on the wall there, if we enable this, it slightly gets rid of that grain. There's still grain there, so once again, a very subtle difference. But there is a very slight change, and it makes it look a little bit better. Anti-flicker, 50Hz or 60Hz, choose whichever one you need. If you do play around with these settings, and for example, we want it looking kind of like this, you can press save at the top. Now what that does is if we click restore, those settings are locked in now and we can't restore back to the factory defaults, but you can really, because next to where save is, we've got this little icon next to save with the advanced device settings. If you click on that, there is the option to restore back to your factory default, which is what we'll do. Underneath, on the front, we have our blue LED light, which will at the moment only come on when we're going live and streaming, like we're using the webcam in some kind of software. You can select always off, which means your light will never come on the front. You can set it to always on, so regardless if you have any software open, that light will permanently be on. At the bottom, we have the preview format. We're currently on 1080 at 60. We can do 30 frames per second at 1080, 60 frames 720, or even 540 if we want to. We have the snapshot, which when we take the picture, next to there is a folder icon that will show you your snapshot that you've just taken. Next we have video preview. If you do use this in OBS, you will need to disable this if you have the camera hub software open. And next to there, we can mirror the image, so we can go from side to side. Comparing it against the Sony A6400 mirrorless camera, which is obviously going to be an unfair test, as the mirrorless camera and lens cost around the £1,000 mark, but it is a good comparison to show you that the Facecam does struggle a little bit when it comes to the exposure using the automatic settings. But when we play around and manually adjust the settings in the camera hub software, we get a much better result. It's still not going to give you that blurry background behind yourself that you can get with the A6400. Moving on to a much fairer test, and that is comparing it against the Logitech Streamcam and the Razer Kiyo, and this is what it looks like with the ring light in front of us, and in my personal opinion it does produce the best image out of all of them. When we turn off the ring light, then the Razer Kiyo brings the most light to the image, but it does suffer with it auto focusing a lot, but the Facecam looks the most natural image of the three. So it is a very expensive webcam which does deliver a very good result, but if you want the best out of it, then you're going to have to manually play around with the settings inside the camera hub software. At this price though, it would be worth weighing up whether it would be better for you to go out and get yourself a second-hand DSLR or mirrorless camera with a high aperture lens if you are desperate for that blurry background effect.